In the winter of 1959, 9 Soviet hikers vanished in the frozen Ural Mountains. Their camp was found ripped open from the inside, their bodies scattered in the snow, some with crushed bones, others missing eyes, and all with no signs of a struggle. The official cause of death? An unknown compelling force. Was it a freak of nature, a military experiment gone wrong, or something far stranger that still haunts the Mountain of the Dead? January 1959. 9 young hikers set out across the frozen wilderness of the northern Ural Mountains in Soviet Russia. Their goal? To reach a remote peak called Otorten. Their leader, Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student with a reputation for discipline and precision. This was to be an expedition of challenge, endurance, and glory. All 9 were experienced, trained in the harsh winters of the Soviet North. Their trek would span more than 300 kilometers through some of the most unforgiving terrain on Earth. But this time, something would go wrong. They began their journey from the small town of Ivdel, boarding a rattling Soviet train bound for the wilderness. From there, a truck carried them along frozen roads to the edge of civilization. The last photograph of them together shows warm smiles, faces full of the confidence of youth, unaware that none would ever return. Their route took them through the territory of the Mansi people, an indigenous group who had given the nearby mountain its ominous name, Kholat Syakhl, Mountain of the Dead. The Mansi told stories of strange lights in the skies here, and of hunters who vanished without a trace. Most outsiders dismissed these as superstition, but the mountain had a reputation, one the Dyatlov group either didn't believe or didn't fear. As the days passed, their journey grew harder. The weather turned against them. A brutal winter storm descended, bringing whiteout conditions and temperatures nearing -30 degrees Celsius. The group was forced off their planned route, eventually camping on the exposed slope of Kholat Syakhl itself. It was here, on this frozen mountainside, that their fate would be sealed. What happened on that night in February 1959 would become one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. And for 60 years, the answers have remained buried beneath the snow. When the rescue teams finally reached the slopes of Kholat Syakhl, weeks had already passed since the group vanished. The mountains were silent, the snow undisturbed, and then they saw it. The tent, half collapsed, standing alone in the frozen wind. Its canvas had been cut open from the inside, the hikers' boots still lined neatly by the entrance, coats untouched, food laid out, waiting for a meal that was never eaten. From the tent, a single trail of footprints led away into the forest. Some were barefoot, some in only socks, all headed toward a dark line of trees and into the unknown. Days later, the first bodies were found, and from the very beginning, something wasn't right. Some lay in thin shirts and socks frozen in place. Others were wearing clothes that didn't belong to them. One had 2 left boots on. But the deeper investigators looked, the stranger the story became. Semyon Zolotaryov, ribs shattered as if hit by a blast wave, yet his skin was unbroken. Ludmila Dubinina, eyes gone, tongue missing, a wound inside her mouth so severe that blood had filled her stomach. Nikolai Thibault-Brignaud, his skull fractured with the force of a car crash, but no external wounds. The injuries were devastating, yet strangely clean. At the funerals, friends and family noticed something disturbing. Some of the bodies had an orange tint to their skin. A few had patches of gray hair, unnatural for hikers in their 20s. These claims never appeared in the official file, but they are preserved in letters, eyewitness accounts, and personal diaries. The strangeness didn't end there. 2 hikers' clothing showed significant radiation contamination, localized to specific areas. It wasn't spread over all the fabric, as though only certain patches had been exposed. Authorities hinted it might have been from work at the university, but none of the other hikers, sharing the same tent and gear, showed similar traces. And even more curious, no follow-up testing of the campsite was ever ordered. Some garments were scorched, others had clean, straight cuts, as though sliced with a knife, not torn by wind or snow. Several items were found inside out, as if removed in a panic, and some of the clothing on the last bodies found had been stripped from the earlier dead. An act of survival, perhaps, but one that suggested they had time, and yet left behind far more protective gear inside the tent. At the cedar tree, where 2 bodies were discovered, branches were broken over 5 meters high. Was someone trying to climb to safety, or to see something in the darkness? Tiny scraps of skin and traces of blood were found embedded in the bark, evidence of frantic movement. And next to the tree, the snow was oddly compressed, as if heavy objects had rested there, or landed. On Zolotaryov's body, searchers found a camera never listed in the group's inventory. Its existence was quietly noted in one report, and never mentioned again. Some say the film was blank, others insist it contained images that were confiscated. No official record confirms either story. When the last of the Dyatlov hikers were found, the investigation should have been just beginning. Instead, it was already ending. 9 young hikers, dead in the most mysterious of circumstances, but in less than 3 months, the Soviet investigation was shut down. The conclusion? A single chilling phrase, an unknown compelling force. When parts of the case were finally released decades later, researchers noticed something strange. It wasn't just what was in the file, it was what was missing. Entire witness statements gone, photographs referenced in the original logs, missing. Autopsy notes altered or shortened. One early injury report described Lyudmila Dubinina's mouth wound in detail. It vanished from later versions. The Ural Mountains were no stranger to Soviet military activity, and several details point to possible interference. Rescuers described circular burn marks in the snow, never photographed, never mentioned again. They also reported metallic fragments partially buried in the ice. These didn't appear in any official evidence list. Even more unsettling, locals reported hearing distant booms on the night of February 1st, coinciding with the moment the hikers fled their tent. The radiation traces found on 2 victims' clothing were officially brushed off, but leaked internal memos show investigators debating whether the contamination was recent. If so, where did it come from? And why did no one test the surrounding area? The answer: the testing order never came. The radiation readings were noted, and then buried. Multiple witnesses, from Mansi hunters to scientists working miles away, reported glowing spheres in the sky over the pass that night. The lead investigator, Lev Ivanov, later admitted he was ordered not to pursue the UFO angle. In a 1990 interview, he revealed he had privately concluded that fireballs may have been connected to the hikers' deaths. These claims were never part of the official findings. Rapid closure of the investigation, missing and altered records, military activity nearby, witnesses reporting strange lights, unexplained injuries and radiation, a missing camera. Individually, each anomaly could be dismissed. Together, they form a pattern, one that suggests the Dyatlov Pass incident may not have been a simple hiking disaster, but something the Soviet Union did not want the world to see. The most official explanation came in 2020, a small slab avalanche. The idea: a section of snow, loosened by wind, slid onto the tent in the night. The hikers, believing the whole slope was about to collapse, cut their way out and fled. It might explain why they left without boots or coats. It might explain some crushing injuries. But here's the problem. Rescue photos show no avalanche debris. The slope angle is far less than avalanche-prone terrain. And if they feared snow collapse, why flee into the forest, downhill, away from shelter? And it explains nothing about the radiation, the missing eyes, or the camera no one was supposed to have. Some researchers believe the hikers were victims of infrasound, low-frequency vibrations caused by wind passing over the mountain's shape. In certain conditions, infrasound can cause nausea, confusion, and extreme fear. It could drive a group into a panicked flight from their shelter. But this theory struggles to explain why the panic continued for over a kilometer, why some injuries were catastrophic, or why clothing was exchanged between the dead and the living. One of the most persistent theories points to Soviet military tests. The Ural Mountains were a known site for parachute mines, explosives dropped from aircraft that detonate above ground. A mid-air blast can cause internal injuries without leaving obvious wounds. The same kind of trauma seen in Zolotaryov, Dubinina, and Thibaut Brignol. Witnesses in nearby settlements reported seeing glowing orbs in the sky on the night of the tragedy. These could have been flares, or something else. The theory also fits with the circular burn marks found in the snow by searchers, details never included in the official record. If the hikers stumbled upon a weapons test, their fate may have been sealed the moment they saw it. The radiation traces on 2 hikers' clothing remain one of the case's most troubling anomalies. Some believe 2 members, Zolotaryov and Kolovatov, may have been connected to Soviet intelligence, possibly escorting sensitive materials. If those materials were radioactive, and if something went wrong, it would explain the contamination and the quick closure of the investigation. But the theory rests on speculation, and no official evidence has ever confirmed it. It left 9 hikers dead and decades of unanswered questions. And until the last piece falls into place, the Dyatlov Pass will remain what it has always been, a place of mystery and of death. 66 years have passed, yet the wind still sweeps across Kholat-Syakhl, carrying the same silence that greeted the rescuers in 1959. The Dyatlov Pass incident has outlived the Soviet Union itself, but the questions it left behind remain. The Soviet conclusion, an unknown compelling force, was less an answer than an admission. Even today, some Russian officials treat the Dyatlov case as a sensitive subject. Why, after all these years, is it still a guarded topic? Every year, hikers visit the site. Some come to pay respects, others come chasing answers. They walk the same slopes, they see the same frozen silence, and many leave with the same feeling, that something is still there. The Dyatlov Pass is more than a location on a map. It's a riddle carved into the snow, its clues scattered between science, secrecy, and legend. 9 lives ended on a winter night in 1959. The truth may be buried in an archive, in a classified report, or in the memories of those who never spoke. But it may also be something no file can explain, a force older than any government, that does not care for our answers. The mountain will keep its silence, the wind will erase the tracks, and the story of Dyatlov Pass will remain what it has always been, a mystery, a warning, and a reminder that some places are meant to be left alone.